Hello, amazing children. This is Grandma Carla, and I am back with more of The Trumpet of the Swan by E.B. White. We are on Chapter 11, Camp KooKoosKoos. Camp KooKoosKoos was on the small lake deep in the woods of Ontario. There were no summer cottages on the lake, no outboard motors, no roads with cars rushing by. It was a wilderness lake, just right for boys. Mr. Beaver left Sam and Lewis at the end of a dirt road, and they finished their journey to camp by canoe. Sam sat in the stern and paddled. Lewis stood in the bow and looked straight ahead. The camp consisted of a big log cabin where everybody ate, 7 tents where the boys and the counselors slept, a dock out front, and a privy out back. The woods closed in all around, but there was a bare spot that had been made into a tennis court, and there were plenty of canoes in which to take trips to other lakes. There were about 40 boys. When Sam's canoe grounded on the sandy beach next to the camp dock, Lewis stepped ashore wearing his slate, his chalk pencil, and his trumpet. About 20 boys rushed down to the landing to see what was going on. They could hardly believe their eyes. "Hey, look what's here!" one of the boys yelled. "A bird!" cried another. "Look at the size of him!" Everyone crowded around Lewis, wanting to get a close look at the new camper. Sam had to push some of the boys back to keep Lewis from getting crushed. "Take it easy, will you?" Sam implored. That evening, after supper, the director of the camp, Mr. Brickle, built a big campfire in front of the main lodge. The boys gathered round. They sang songs and toasted marshmallows and swatted mosquitoes. Sometimes you couldn't understand the words of the song because the boys sang with marshmallows in their mouths. Lewis did not join the group. He stood by himself at a little distance. After a while, Mr. Brickle rose to his feet and addressed the boys and the counselors. "I call your attention," he said, "to a new camper in our midst, Lewis the Swan. He is a trumpeter swan, a rare bird. We are lucky to have him. I have employed him at the same salary I pay my junior counselors, $100 for the season. He is gentle and has a speech defect. He came here from Montana with Sam Beaver. Lewis is a musician. Like most musicians, he is in need of money. He will wake you. You know what? There is a page missing in our book. Let's see if it's on the other side. We have 2 page 96s in my book. That is so sad. 2 page 96s and no 95. We're just going to have to go on to 96, guys. All right. So, he will wake you. And I'm sure that he goes on. One of the new boys who had never been to camp before stood up. "Mr. Brickle," he said, "why is this camp called Camp KooKoosKoos? What does KooKoosKoos mean?" "It is an Indian name for the great horned owl," replied Mr. Brickle. The new boy thought about this for a minute. "Then why didn't you just call it Camp Great Horned Owl instead of Camp KooKoosKoos?" "Because," replied Mr. Brickle, "a boys' camp should have a peculiar name. Otherwise, it doesn't sound interesting. KooKoosKoos is a terrific name. It is a long word, but it has only 3 letters in it. It has 2 S's, 3 K's, and 6 O's. You don't find many names as kooky as that. The queerer the name, the better the camp. Anyway, welcome to Camp KooKoosKoos. It rhymes with moose. That's another good thing about it. And now it's time for everybody to go to bed. You may take a swim before breakfast tomorrow, and you don't need to wear your swim trunks. Just jump out of bed when you hear the trumpet of the swan, strip off your pajamas, race to the dock, and dive in. I will be there ahead of you to do my celebrated backflip from the diving tower. It freshens me up for the hard day ahead. Good night, Lewis. Good night, Sam. Good night, Applegate. Good night, all." The light was fading. The boys straggled off to their tents in the darkness. The senior counselors sat together on the porch and smoked one last pipe. Sam crawled in under the blankets in tent 3. Lewis walked to a high, flat rock by the shore and stood there waiting. When the lights were all out, he faced the camp, raised his horn to his mouth, and blew taps. Day is done, gone the sun, from the lake, from the hills, from the sky. All is well, safely rest, God is nigh. So if you have never heard taps played, maybe I can play it for you on my flute. I don't play trumpet, but I do play flute. The last note seemed to linger on the still waters of the lake. From their beds, the boys heard the beautiful sound. They felt sleepy and serene and happy, all but Applegate Skinner, who didn't care for birds at bedtime. But even Applegate was soon sleepy, along with the others in his tent. He was asleep, and he was snoring. People who dislike birds often snore. A deep peace fell over Camp KooKoosKoos. All right, so he did his job. Now, I am very sorry that this book does not have a page 95, because I just really want to know what's on page 95, don't you? But it does not have a 95. It has 2 96s, so we missed something, and I think we must have missed something about this boy named Applegate Skinner. But I guess we'll find out later. Okay, so here's the song that he played on taps, and there is the trumpeter Swan trumpeting his trumpet. There is Lewis facing the camp and playing taps to put all the boys to sleep. And this is Grandma Carla, and I love you. I thought it would be fun to try to play taps for you on my little wooden flute. This is a flute that my husband bought me down in southern Florida somewhere, a handmade flute. And I'm learning how to play it, so this might not be perfect, but why not try it, right? This is taps. So there, that is taps, and that is what Lewis played. And let me read to you the words again. Day is done, gone the sun, from the lake, from the hills, from the sky. All is well, safely rest, God is nigh. And that is really the end of the chapter. And this is Grandma Carla, and I love you.